Here we are. Okay, so this morning we are looking at Persia. Now, Persia is a mighty empire. We're going to look at how that mighty empire really came about, and we're going to look at what are called the great kings, and some who aren't so great. There are three kings of Persia who, are the well-known ones, the ones that are really popular, and you might have heard their names. And those three are Cyrus the Great, who is also known as Cyrus the Second, because he is the second king of that name. And he's really the guy that makes the Persian Empire an empire, rather than just a little tiny village in the middle of nowhere. We've then got Darius the Great, who is our fourth on this list today. He's the next of the great Persian kings. And then we've got Xerxes, who is the third great Persian king. But you'll notice there are a couple of lesser kings thrown in there, just so that we get the timeline right today. Cambyses the second, and the Pseudo-Smerdis. I am the Pseudo-Smerdis. All of those names will become more familiar as we go through today. Now, let's see where we can go. Let's start with our map here. This is a map of the Persian Empire by the time it is at its greatest extent during this period. So when it's at its biggest, its largest. And you'll notice that it covers a lot of the world, great big chunk. Now, when this map, or the exact period that this map represents, 490 BC. This is towards the end of Darius's reign, or maybe into Xerxes' reign. So this is by the time the Persian Empire has grown very big. The capital at that point is a place called Persopolis, which is behind me here. There we go, Persopolis, with our great big Lamassu guarding the palace there. Not much left of it now, but there you go. And this is modern day Iran, is around here, and Iraq going into this way. We'll see that this is the Fertile Crescents. This is the Sumerian Empire that we looked at a few weeks ago. That's been taken over by Persia. Persia's also taken most of Syria, Phoenicia, all the way taken over Egypt, quite a big prize there, all the way taken all of Turkey and bits of the Greek area as well, all the way up into the steppe lands of the north here. Also, at one point, it even crosses over and takes the very tip here of the Arabian Peninsula. So it's a huge empire, really, really, really big. If we compare that to the Greek empires that we've been looking at recently, here's Athens, which is tiny. There's Sparta, which is tiny. This is Persia. It is huge, so pretty important in terms of world history. Let me just put that list of kings back there again. Now, don't worry, I'm going to move away from this list of kings, but as we go through, I'm going to keep their dates and things up so that you can keep track of who's king, when, and why, and how. So before I really launch into this today, I'm going to give you the overview this morning. So I'm going to give you the basics about these 5 rulers. There is a lot more to learn, just like with all the stuff we do. So by all means, delve deeper. If you're interested in any one of these particular kings, have a Google search, have a look around, read some books, and you'll find out loads more cool stuff about them. But I'm going to try and give you today what the way that these kings are usually represented. It's not the way that maybe is the most true, because there are historians out there who will disagree with the titles that I'm about to give these kings. But for simplicity's sake, we are going to give each of these kings a title. So to show you what I mean, we're going to start with Cyrus over here. Cyrus the Great. Ooh, here he is. And the title I've given him is the Warlord, because he's the man who really takes Persia and makes it into an empire rather than just a little village, which essentially is what it starts off as, down in the south of Iran. Now, just to show you how much Cyrus the Great, how great he is, Cyrus manages to create the Persian Empire in this shape here. Here's the green. So that's Cyrus. This is what he manages to achieve. He basically takes over Turkey, the Middle East, Iraq, Iran. He even takes the tip of the Arabian Peninsula there, all the way down to Afghanistan. It's a huge area that that Cyrus manages to create for himself. So he's called the Great for a reason, because he is awesome. There you are. He could be called Cyrus the Awesome, I guess, but Great makes sense too. So, how does he get from being just a little guy to an incredible ruler of nations? And part of it, at least the first part of it, is war. He takes his armies and he marches around, just conquering city after city, country after country, nation after nation, adding them to his empire. That's why I've called him the warlord. But instead of focusing on the battles, I'm going to focus today on how Cyrus is supposed to have become powerful in the first place, and how he manages to hold his empire, his new fledgling empire, together. I've got questions here about how did he die. Let's not get to the deaths quite yet. Interesting. So we've got here Cyrus. He looks pretty fine. He's got a nice headdress on there with his star on the side. I've picked pictures today that are the most interesting pictures of these kings. How accurate they are, we don't really know, because of course there were no photographers back then. And there are also no artists working in brush and paint. So what we have are carvings and things to represent our kings. But I quite like this picture, so I've chosen this one for today. Now, the legend goes that Cyrus was always destined to be king. He was destined to rule over the Persians and then to take them further. Now, Persia at this time was a tiny little villagey kind of area. It had had kings before. It was, maybe I'm underselling it as a village, but it wasn't very big or important. The area that was important, that was right next to little old Persia, was an area called Media or Medea. The Medes were the people that were in control of the area. And the king of the Medes was this guy over here, Astyages. I'm never quite sure if I'm saying that right. Maybe Astyages? Now, Astyages, he has his seers, his magi, the leaders of the religion at this time. And for those of you interested, this links in with what we're going to be doing on Friday, because the main religion of Persia is Zoroastrianism. The belief in one supreme god, Ahura Mazda. But we'll explain more of that on Friday. And as we go through our mentioned religion here and there. At this point, Astyages must be fairly old, because he is told that his grandson is going to kill him and take his kingdom. Oh dear. So, Astyages, this is the myth, he decides, okay, I will make sure that my grandson cannot take over my kingdom, and he takes his baby grandson and he orders him to be killed. Kill the baby, kill the baby. Oh dear, these stories always start with horrible things like this. Now, he gives the duty of killing the baby to his top general, Harpagus. Harpagus is a trustworthy man. He's a noble. He has his own family, and he is told, take this baby away and kill it. Now, Harpagus, he's a good man, really. He cannot stand to think about killing a poor, innocent baby. So instead of killing it, he takes it and he gives it to a goat herd. Just some farmer Joe somewhere who looks after goats. And the goat herd, he takes the baby away and he raises him as his own child. So no one knows that this baby, who is Cyrus the Great, no one knows that he is going to be king of Persia. And no one knows that he is the grandson of King Astyages. Astyages is quite happy because he thinks that the baby is dead. The baby's quite happy because it's not dead. And it grows up with this goat herd down in Persia. Now, at about the age of 10, Cyrus is now a big, strapping, strong lad. And he gets into a fight with one of the noblemen's sons over in Media. That's a good question. Nadia, sorry. Nadia's asking, why didn't Harpagus raise it as his own boy? I suppose Harpagus couldn't do that because he's like King Astyages' right-hand man. Astyages would notice that Harpagus has a new baby, and that it looks like the baby he ordered to be killed. So no, he can't look after it himself. He has to get rid of it. Ella's asking what the wooden thing is. It's not wooden, it's clay, but I will come to that in a minute, because that fits in with where we're going. It's called the Cyrus cylinder, but we'll come to that in a minute. Yeah, Armani's saying this is very similar to the myth in Hercules, very much so. Yes, if you've seen the Disney film Hercules, he's supposed to be killed, but he's not. He goes and grows up with a shepherd somewhere, and yeah, the story goes from there. So this is a story we hear a lot in history. So exactly how true it is, I don't know. And Nudge is asking, who named him Cyrus? Now, he is technically Cyrus the Great, so he would have been named after his, what would be the relation? Maybe his great-grandfather would have been Cyrus the First, so I assume he was just named after that, another famous king of Persia, but when Persia was a lot smaller. And it is a bit like Snow White. Yeah, Snow White sent away into the forest because she's supposed to, the evil queen doesn't want her to take over the kingdom. Yeah, so, yeah, getting rid of babies, killing babies is always a theme, isn't it, in lots of fairy stories and myths. So how true this is, I can't really say. And Tarzan, there's another good example, yeah. All right, so Cyrus, he grows up, but when he's about 10 years old, he gets into a fight with a young Median nobleman, and because he's, the two have beaten each other up, basically, Cyrus is dragged before King Astyages. Now, normally, when King Astyages brings in peasant boys from the countryside who have been accused of fighting, they kind of, that they're either a bit rude or a bit stupid or both. But this young man, Cyrus, he speaks very clearly to the king, and he's very sensible, and he persuades the king that he was in the right to attack this nobleman, that the nobleman was wrong, and, really, it should be Astyages who's apologizing to Cyrus, because Cyrus has had to go around and fight, It's the king's fault, if anything. Now, King Astyages, instead of getting cross at this, at this point, Rock, Cyrus is about 10 years old. We're talking young boy here, yeah. So imagine young boy dragged in front of the king, and instead of groveling or being upset, he just defends himself clearly and plainly. And Astyages takes a look at the boy in front of him, perhaps takes a look in the mirror. He thinks about how noble this man is, and he decides, hang on, you must be my grandson. You look exactly like me, and you talk with nobility and grace, therefore you must be royal. Now, Cyrus is kind of blown away by this because he didn't know he was royal. But Astyages asks Harpagus, Harpagus, did you kill that baby like I told you? And Harpagus, admits that no, he didn't kill the baby. He's very sorry. And so Astyages, instead of getting cross that Cyrus is alive, because he's so impressed by the boy, he's like, cool. Yeah, you can be my grandson. Let's forget about the prophecy that my grandson's going to kill me. You seem far too nice a young man to ever do anything like that. We know where this is going. And so Cyrus is welcomed into the court. Now, Astyages doesn't like people ignoring his orders. Oh, no. So, well, Nadia asks a good question here. Why would he talk with grace and dignity if he was raised by a shepherd? And the answer is, this is a myth about nobility. And of course, back in those days, the nobles. Oh, hang on, I'm being told that I'm frozen. Let me see. I might be for some, I might not be for others. Let me see if I can fix it before I go on. There we go. Yes, Amani. So, Astyages, why is he noble? The idea in the ancient world was that some people were just made better than others. Yeah, so some people had noble blood, and that was obvious, and some people were destined to be peasants, and that was obvious too. So they didn't really believe that it was down to your parents or how you were raised. If you take a noble person and get them raised by peasants, they will always come out as a nobleman. If you take a peasant and raise them with nobles, they will also always end up a peasant. That's just how it goes. Yeah. I'm not sure how true that is, but that's the belief back then. So, Astyages decides to punish Harpagus for disobeying orders, and so Astyages invites Harpagus to a great big feast. All the noblemen sat around in this great big palace, not the palace of Persopolis behind me. This hasn't been built yet in this story. But in the palace of Media, and they all sit there, and Harpagus is given special honors. He's not quite sure why, but he's given the special honors of eating a special plate of meat just for him. So Harpagus eats the meat. They have a nice party, lots of wine and feasting, all this kind of stuff. But then at the end, Astyages says, "Harpagus, did you enjoy your meal?" And Harpagus says, "Yes, my meal was lovely. Thank you very much, O king, highest upon high." Ooh, rock is guessing poisonous. Not quite poisonous. Now, Astyages then does something horrific. He says, "Harpagus, tell me, what was the meat you were eating?" And Harpagus says, "I don't know, lamb, pork, not quite sure." And then Astyages reveals, "You have eaten your own son!" Dun, dun, dun. Astyages has stolen Harpagus's son and cooked him, fed him to him as a punishment. Yes, poor boy indeed. Yes, everyone's like, ooh, yuck, disgusting. It's gross. He what? So poor old Harpagus was fed his own son in punishment for not killing Cyrus. But this will all backfire on Astyages, as you can imagine. You can't get away with such terrible acts. Oh no, especially not when Cyrus is around. Because Harpagus, he takes this surprisingly well. He knows that he is in the presence of his king, and he is a loyal follower of the king. So he bows down and he says, "Well, thank you very much, sire. That was a very nice meal. Wonderful of you. Oh, I certainly have learnt my lesson by eating my own child." Yeah, no one ever cares about the child here, but there you go. But Harpagus, of course, deep down, he is not happy at all, as you would not be, I imagine. So Harpagus goes straight to Cyrus after the meal, and the two of them start to plot and to scheme about how to take down the bad king Astyages, which, of course, within a few months, Cyrus, with the help of Harpagus and Harpagus's armies, the armies of King Astyages, take over the kingdom, and true to prophecy, Cyrus kills King Astyages and takes the throne. There you go. And that's the first step. If we go back to our map over here, that will explain, the first step. Here's the kingdom of Media. Here we are. So, and Cyrus has come from a little bit south of Persopolis, around there somewhere, but now he's eaten this part of the kingdom, and so now his empire is starting to grow. He has Persia and Media. He's then going to go and take all these other places, or most of these other places, on our map here. A good question, Nadia. Why did Harpagus eat the meat? Because he didn't know. Astyages was being all nice and saying, "Oh, it's a celebration. Eat this lovely meat." So, of course, Harpagus had no idea what meat he was eating. Yeah. You saw Ethiopia on the map, of course. Yes. Excellent. Well done. So, Cyrus then, he's got a job on his hands. He takes his army with the help of Harpagus, and the two of them conquer much of the ancient world. It's amazing. The problem that Cyrus then has, though, is how do I keep my new empire together? How do I stop people fighting? I now have an empire made up of Medes and Persians. I've got Afghanis from down there. I've got steppe people from the steppes to the north. I've got the Turks. How do I get all these people to work together as one great big empire? Empires really hadn't been this big in history before. This is the first time really in history we see a big empire like this. And so he comes up with what has been described as the first ever set of human rights. Now, it's a bit of a grand term for it. It's not quite the same as the human rights we have today. But basically what Cyrus said is that the people in his kingdom could look however they wanted, dress however they wanted. They could have their own religions. They could even have their own leaders called satraps. So instead of Cyrus bullying everyone and telling everyone what to do, he would say, let's say he takes over Turkey, he would say, "Right, you there, Mr. Turkish gentleman, you can be the satrap of Turkey, and you can keep things going the same, and you can have your own religions, and you can have your own laws even up to a point. But you must bring me two things. You must bring me earth, and you must bring me water." And so from their local rivers, the satraps would take water, and from the grounds around their cities, they would bring earth, and they would take it all to Cyrus, these great big clay jugs, and he would put them in a great big storeroom. And there they would be labeled. So he would have, the earth and the water of Turkey. He'd have the earth and the water of Media. He'd have the earth and the water of Phoenicia, wherever he's going. And that would be the symbol to everyone that these people now owe allegiance to Cyrus. But he didn't bully them. He didn't make them do stuff. He didn't say, right, everyone now has to be a Zoroastrian and believe in Ahura Mazda. No, he said, you Jewish folks, you be Jewish. Although, this is very, very early in Judaism, if they existed at all. He would say, you people who believe in the Greek gods, fine, keep going. You guys in Babylon, you believe in the Babylonian gods all you like, but bring me earth and bring me water, and then we will know that we are one empire. And yeah, they have to pay in money and stuff too, in taxes. But other than that, life could continue pretty much as normal, which meant that the empire was pretty peaceful. Not perfect, but pretty peaceful. I'm getting a lot of spam in the chat. I hope I'm not missing any questions. So please stop just shouting my name. That would be very useful. Nadia's asking, does Cyrus end up killing Harpagus? Not as far as I know. As far as I know, Harpagus is loyal to Cyrus to the end, as far as I'm aware. Yeah. Okay. All right. So, satraps. How do we spell this? Let me see. Being asked here. Satrap is spelt like that. So you very nearly had it, Jasper. Just one letter out. There you go. So a satrap is spelt like that. So yes, Cyrus was in charge of everyone, but the satraps were the ones who were in charge of their area on a day-to-day basis. The satrap of Babylon would have still had complete control over Babylon to a point. They would just have to make sure that they sent earth, water, and money to the king. Yeah. All right. Nadia asks, how would you become a satrap? That's a very good question. So really, the way you become a satrap is Cyrus would come with his armies, and he would either fight you and take your city, and then install his own satrap. So he'd find someone that was loyal to him and make them the leader. But more often than not, to be honest, especially towards the end of Cyrus's reign, when everyone knows the score, most places, when Cyrus comes with his armies, they give up straight away. They hold up their hands and they're like, okay, yep, we will submit. We don't want to fight. We don't want to die. And Cyrus would say, okay, king of whatever city I've just taken over, you can now be the satrap and bring me the earth, bring me the water, bring me the money every year, and we're all good. Yeah, you can be part of the Persian Empire, which meant that the Persian Empire was full of all kinds of different people with different religions and skin colors and ways of dressing and languages. It would have been a real interesting place to be. Now, we better move on to our second one because we're nearly halfway through and I've only got past the first king. Oh dear. Yeah, I like Cyrus the Great too. He seems like a genuinely, I mean, don't get me wrong, there is violence inside of Cyrus's life. He does fight wars, but he's always goes down in history as quite a noble and generous ruler. He wants to take over and he wants the power, but he doesn't necessarily want to go around hacking people's heads off left and right and center. So yeah, he is quite a cool guy for sure. He believed in equality, even if he didn't believe in everyone being the same. So there you go. Now, next up, though, we have Cyrus's son, Cambyses II, who I've put here as the Mad. Now, the legends and the histories tell us that this guy was mad as a box of frogs. But take that with a pinch of salt, because most of the history that we have about this man comes from Egypt. It was the ancient Egyptians who wrote down all the history about Cambyses, and there was a reason, good reason, that they thought he was mad, or at least wanted to show that he was mad, because Cambyses is the guy who adds Egypt to the empire. Now, Cyrus never invaded or took down Egypt, but Cambyses will. So if we look here on our map, this is Egypt here, and as you can see, this is in blue, because the lands of Phoenicia and Egypt, they were taken over by Cambyses. Cyrus never got there. He never took over Egypt, but Cambyses does. He's known as mad because it is said that whereas Cyrus had respect for all religions and cultures and faith, Cambyses did not. I'm not quite sure how Cyrus dies. That's a good question. I'm not sure how he dies. I think it's a bit of a history mystery, that one. Cyrus just kind of disappears from the records. We know that he's dead, but I'm not sure if there's a it's not like our medieval kings. It's not really recorded exactly how. I might be wrong. You might be able to do some research and find out. But I think that Cyrus kind of just disappears. Hmm. Ooh, that's good. Someone is making a brownie in a mug. It's a good idea. Enjoy. So, yeah, the reason he's called mad by the Egyptians is because he has no respect for the Egyptian religion. According to the legends, when Cambyses marches down into Egypt, we can see a sort of representation of him taking over Egypt here. There we are. Bringing his elephants down, but it's quite a civilized scene, as we can see in this particular picture. There is another picture which is not quite so civilized. But when he enters Egypt as its new king, he takes it over. The people are in a state of celebration. Now, oh, sorry, I'm being told that my voice is not clear. Let me try and... There we are. Hopefully that helps. Yes. Everyone in Egypt at this point, they're having a great big party, a great celebration. And the reason for this celebration is that the Apis bull, or the Apis bull, sorry, has been born. Now, let me find you a picture, actually, of the Apis bull. The belief in Egypt at this time was that there would always be an Apis bull, a really important sacred bull that was linked to the gods. Now, bulls, male cows, would... Oh, I'm being told here that Cyrus was killed in action. He was fighting in a war. Maybe that's how he died. Cool, thank you. The Apis bull was supposed to be one of the Egyptian gods born in the form of a bull. And every now and again, as bulls do, the bull would die. And the people of Egypt would look around the fields of Egypt and the farms, and they would find another bull, a baby bull, that have the same markings. So, maybe a spot here and a splodge there, and maybe that was the sign of the Apis bull. And then they would take that bull away, and they would put it in a field, and they would respect it, and they would honor it for all of its life, feed it nicely, and give it loads of room to run around, and treat it with great respect and pray to it. And then when it died, they would go and find a new one. Now, recently, the Apis bull had died, which is a sad time for the people of Egypt, but just as Cambyses gets there, they have found the new Apis bull, and so they're having a great big party. Now, Cambyses, he asks, he's taken over the palaces, he asks the ruler, what's going on here? Why is everyone partying? And they say, because we found the Apis bull. It's the god in bull form. It's a great time of celebration. Now, Cambyses, according to the Egyptians, does not believe this story, and he orders the people who told him it killed. Ugh. And he asks another group of people, tell me the truth, why are you people partying? And they say, honestly, it's because it's a special bull. Please don't kill us. And so Cambyses, in his madness, he says, fine, take me to that bull. Rrr. And he goes down into the fields, and he sees this baby bull, and as a sign of the power of his might, he takes out his sword and he stabs the bull, killing it. Ooh, that monster Cambyses. So of course the Egyptian people are incredibly sad, because not only has he killed a bull for no real reason, he has also killed their god. Yeah, he's hurt their god. They have to go and find a new Apis bull. Now, Cambyses, he makes it worse, according to the Egyptians, and he then decides to make an example of Egypt. And he takes he takes 1,000 young boys and girls belonging to the noble houses of Egypt, so the richest people. He takes their sons, he takes their daughters, and he makes them into slaves, as we can see here. Here he is marching along with a line of children as slaves. Boo to Cambyses. Boo. There we go. So, yes, he's not treating Egypt very nicely at all. He's enslaved the young children, and he's killed the Apis bull. Boo, indeed, everyone's saying boo. So yes, no one likes Cambyses. Now, Cambyses, though, he does get his comeuppance in the end, because it's said that a few years later, he's riding around on a horse, as emperors and kings are wont to do, and he falls off his horse. And he lands on his own sword, which pokes him right in the side. Strangely, right in the exact spot where he stabbed the Apis bull. Divine justice by the gods of Egypt, methinks. So he ends up being killed in exactly the same way as the Apis bull is. I'm being asked to spell that, so there we are, an Apis bull there. And so the Egyptians see that as great justice. He stabbed the Apis bull, and he was stabbed himself, and they died in the same way. There you go. Now, how true this story is, of course, we don't really know, because history is written by certain groups of people, and the Egyptians have no reason to love Cambyses. We don't really know if he was actually mad, but the Egyptians tell us he was, and that's the history we've got to go on. So there you go. That's why Cambyses is the mad king of Persia. Now, another thing that leads us to the belief that he is quite crazy, this man. What is he doing to the boy in the front of the picture here? Yes, it looks like he's maybe grabbing him and he's going to add him to the line of slaves. Maybe that's what this is showing us. Yes, maybe that's what he's doing. I'm not entirely sure, but it definitely shows his line of slaves there. I assume that he's, yes, grabbing another one to add to the line. Karma is real, says Rowan. Yes, that is definitely karma. Not that the Egyptians believed in such a thing, but yes. What goes around comes around. That's right. It does look like he's hitting that boy with a stick. That's right, Grace. True. Now, Cambyses is told that his kingdom will be taken from him by his own son, a man called Smerdis. Now, Cambyses at this point does an Astyages, and he has his own son killed so that his son Smerdis can never take over. Yeah, another sign that he is quite mad. But Cambyses is shocked when, or at least the people of Persia are shocked, when on the death of Cambyses, a person who looks exactly like his son who was murdered, Smerdis, arrives in court and says, "I am the real Smerdis, I am king." Now, he goes down in history as the pseudo-Smerdis. Pseudo means the fake Smerdis, yeah? So it's hard to unpick this, whether maybe Smerdis never was actually killed. So was it the real Smerdis? Or is it actually just someone who looks a lot like Smerdis, who is now coming to the court and saying, "I should be king, look at me, my name is Smerdis, and I look exactly like the old Smerdis, I must be the real one." We're not quite sure. A fake twin, yes, something like that. It would work well in a soap opera, wouldn't it? Now, you'll notice here that Pseudo-Smerdis, he's not around for long, and I've given him the epithet, the brief, because he doesn't get to stay king for long. Most people don't agree that he is the king. He just seems to be some random guy who looks a bit like the old Smerdis did, and it's within less than a year. Yes, he's king for a few months in 522 BCE. So just for those of you who are wondering on the timeline here, I didn't really explain. We're talking 2,500 years ago. We'll connect it up with our Spartans and our Athenians in a minute. But this is before the stuff we were looking at with Sparta and Athens. Smerdis, he gets taken out, just got rid of, let's say, by the next king who gets the title the Great, Darius the Great. Ooh. Now, Darius, he is not the next in line for the throne. He's not even the fifth in line for the throne. He's a very, very distant relative of Cambyses, but he is related. Now, according to Darius himself, the reason he gets to be king is because he goes out into the fields of Iran, into the Zagros mountains. You know, we've got to imagine kind of grassy mountains. The mountains of the Zagros, or the Zagros, I'm never sure how to pronounce it, of Iran are very sacred to the Persians. It's kind of, those hills and mountains are seen as the birthplace of their being, their religion as well. And the Zoroastrians, they have some important symbols. Cows are incredibly important to the Zoroastrians, which is another reason why Cambyses killing the Apis bull is quite bad, because even if he doesn't believe in Egyptian religion, his own religion tells him that cows are sacred. And that is a belief that will spread over, because Darius is the king who takes over the Indus Valley civilization, which leads to Hinduism, or at least the flavor of Hinduism we have now, which also cows are sacred. So this idea of cows being important really does spread across the world, and it's still in many places today. But the other important symbol of Zoroastrianism is the horse, especially a white horse. Now, I know this isn't in the grassy fields of the Zagros, but it's a beautiful white horse, so I'm using it for my illustration here. According to Darius, he's out there in the fields on his own. He's gone out to speak to God, to the great high Ahura Mazda. And out of the distance comes this beautiful white horse. It comes out of nowhere almost, just galloping over the plains. And it comes to him and it bows its head and he strokes it and it lets him ride it. It's almost a unicorn, isn't it? It does look a bit unicornish because its ears here almost looks like a horn, doesn't it? But that's its ear, I'm afraid. I'd like to believe it was a unicorn. The Persians do believe that they have in their old mythology, they have beliefs in a type of unicorn, a bit of a side step here, but since you mentioned unicorns, the unicorns of Persia, they can make a beautiful song. They can sing in this amazing, beautiful song, which some say is made by their horn. Maybe the way that the wind moves around their horn makes this beautiful music. And it draws to it all of the creatures, the wild things, and maybe even people. They come towards the unicorn because its song is so beautiful. And when the unicorn stops singing, when it stops making its beautiful music, it then turns on all the creatures and eats them up, because it's a carnivorous beast. The unicorn is not a happy, jolly creature in Persia. Oh no, the unicorn is a deadly creature. It draws you in and then it eats you up. Sorry about that. I don't mean to ruin unicorns for people, but there you go. that's the Persian unicorn for you. Now, this horse comes to Darius, and because it is the simple symbol of Ahura Mazda, Darius takes this as a sign that he should be the king. And according to Darius, he then gets an army together and he just defeats the pseudo-Smerdis and takes the throne for himself. Now, under Darius, the empire will again expand. Our third bit of expansion here is the red area on our map. So if we remember, the green area was the bits that Cyrus took originally. Then Cambyses the Mad, he takes over Egypt, Phoenicia, and around here. And then we get the edges are all pushed out in all directions by Darius. Yeah, maybe not quite as impressive a takeover as the others. Taking down the Egyptian Empire is pretty huge. But he's adding extra land around the edges all around. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Eleanor, I'm not sure which bit you're referring to. Yes, me odd says they thought Egypt was big. Yes, Egypt was big. It is big. Persia is huge, absolutely massive. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Fire Tablet. I have ruined your life of loving unicorns. It's okay. The unicorns in Europe never ate anyone. They were symbols of purity and and beauty. So yeah, just stay away from the ones in Iran, I guess. Is the Persian Empire still here today? Well, if you go, I mean, as you can see, this is the capital that Darius builds, the one behind me. This is Persopolis. Cyrus's own capital was a place called Pasargadae, which he built as well. But as you can see, it's not used today. It's a tourist destination. There are still people who worship the old ways in Iran, in Zoroastrianism. So there are people who believe in the same gods, and they would definitely, trace their lines back maybe to the Persians. I mean, if you go to Iran today, a lot of people will happily call themselves Persians. Yeah, if there's any Persia left, then it's Iran. And often the language of Iran, Farsi, is called Persian. So you might know people who speak the Persian language. You might even speak it yourself. But yes, it's not technically Persia. So Persopolis is this city. I'll write that up here. because people are asking me what it's called. Yeah, so Persopolis is the capital that Darius makes. Now, I've put Darius as the builder because he's probably most famous for taking what his predecessors gave him. And yes, he extended it a bit, but he's been described as someone who, Persopolis, there we go. He's been described as someone who builds. He builds temples, he builds whole cities, he builds palaces, he builds homes for the people. He's absolutely obsessed, is Darius, with being a bit of a businessman. Yeah, he runs the empire like somebody would run a big business. He's been called, maybe not quite so kindly, a bean counter, which is kind of an accountant. Yeah, he's more interested in the money, how it flows in and how it flows out, how he can make profit over here and how he can take it over there. And he uses that money to build glorious statues and buildings. Nadia, no, he doesn't build it himself. He's not literally the builder. He has people he pays to do that, I assume. But no, he says, give me a town over there, give me a city there, I want this many temples, I want that many buildings, I want a palace with this many rooms, I want a great big Lama suit over here, please. Let's tell you what, Babylon, can we add an extra level to Babylon? It's kind of nice how it is, but I want it taller. That pyramid over there, can we try a pyramid with 6 sides instead of 3 or 4, sorry? That kind of thing, and people jump to it and get building. So that's what he's famous for. Life under Darius is pretty peaceful. I mean, as you can see, there are wars and there are issues. There always will be in great big empires. But for most of the people who live under Darius, it's a pretty good life, I reckon, because it's a time where the world is getting better. People are getting richer. Trade is flourishing. The best thing about having an empire is that suddenly you've got wonderful trade routes between Egypt and Afghanistan and between northern Greece and Turkey. It's amazing. People can really benefit from life like that. It's early globalization. I know it's not the globe, but it's as close to globalization as you could get back in the ancient world. Yes, Grace, I would like a giant swimming pool, please. I don't know if they had swimming pools back there. I do wonder how many people could swim from Persia. Maybe not those who grew up in the middle of the mountains. I don't know. There you go. Someone's telling me that they have been to Turkey and their stepdad went to Afghanistan. So there are 2 ends of the Persian Empire. That's pretty cool. Yes, I've not been that far. I'd like to go to Afghanistan, but yes, I've not been there. A tennis court over here, says Rock. Yes, I thought you might want a tennis court, Rock. I'm pretty sure they didn't have any tennis, I'm afraid. How long have we got left? We finished today at 10 o'clock, so we've got just about 14 minutes left, something like that. Here we go. All right. No, Nadia, I've not been out of Europe either. Yes, I've been to several places in Europe, but I've never been further than that. I'd like to be. Yeah, one day when I grow up, I will. That's a good question, Rook. Yeah. Was he related to Cambyses? He was, but very distantly. We're talking like the 3rd cousin, twice removed. It wasn't a very close relationship. But he could trace his line back to Cambyses. Yeah. So that was his legitimizing it. When he turns up at the court, he basically says, "Look, I'm related to the old king, and this horse said I could be king, so here I am." And yeah, it went from there. That's okay. Yeah, some people saying they've not been out of Britain even. That's fine. There's plenty of time for all this. Yeah. Oh wow! And Mega Gengar is telling me that he's been to Kazakhstan or she's been to Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. I'd like to go to those places. I've never visited there. Let me see. Does the Persian Empire go that high? I suppose it must do. It must have gone into Kazakhstan, I guess. Yeah, I'm a bit hazy on my Central Asian geography there, but I think it must have touched it at least. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So Darius, he goes down in history as the great ruler, the builder. Here we've got a symbol of his religion, of Zoroastrianism, and he built plenty of temples. Now, part of the Zoroastrian belief in Ahura Mazda is in the sacredness of flame and fire. And the Zoroastrian temples would have eternal flames burning in them. These great big, think almost as big as the Olympic flame, burning day and night, never let to go out, burning in these temples as as prayer to Ahura Mazda the Great. the great evil in Zoroastrianism was called Ahriman, and Ahriman was kind of like the opposite of Ahura Mazda. Ahura Mazda was light and truth, and Ahriman was lies, deceit, and evil. Um, and the belief, as far as we know, the first ever religion to say this, it believed that there is good and there is evil in the world. That's what it taught. It wasn't just like Greek gods, just always being a bit naughty. It was, there are real good things and there are real bad things, and life is a fight between good and evil. And with this sort of guiding principle, that leads the Persians to conquer over and over again, bringing the light of Ahura Mazda to the people of the area. Eleanor asked, what if it rained? The temples would have roofs, so yes, the fire would be burning with a roof over the top. So yes, yeah, the rain wouldn't have put the fire out. MB Shadowgirl saying she's been to Holland. Very cool. Yes, I've been to Holland too. I like Holland. Yeah. Oh, lots of people have been to Holland. That's good. And Jay has been to Thailand. Excellent. So some of you have travelled further than even Darius did. Not bad. All right, so let's come to our last king, because we've only got 10 minutes left. And of course, we can't leave without chatting about Xerxes, because this will tie the Persians in with the Greek stuff that we have seen in the past. Because Xerxes, I've put here, he's the decadent. Again, I'm not sure how fair this is to Xerxes, but he goes down in history as being all about the partying, all about the gold and the jewels and the fun times, the drinking wine, all that kind of stuff. I think it's a bit unfair because Xerxes, he didn't really extend the empire very much, but he did hold it together, which is not an easy feat to keep a massive empire running. So he couldn't have been quite as bad as the sources say. But yes, the decadent. Decadent means he's more interested in having fun and beautiful things around him than he is with getting down and seriously ruling an empire. Whereas Cyrus the Great would have been out there on the battlefield fighting, probably dressed in armor. Xerxes would be in a palace surrounded by servants wearing silks, or in this picture from the film 300, here he's shown just with gold all around him, gold necklaces stacked up, nose rings, whatever you call this weird thing that goes over his face. Makeup on. He's far more about the good things and the artistic lifestyle than he is about fighting, that kind of thing. That's the idea behind decadence. So we're going to go with the traditional story that he was someone who, yes, was very decadent and very much about the fun times. And unfortunately for Xerxes, most of the sources that we have from him come from the Greeks. We don't know much or as much about Xerxes as some of the others, whereas Cambyses we know about from the Egyptians who he attacked and took over. We know about Xerxes from the Greeks because he tried to invade Greece, but he failed. And the two famous battles, one of which we mentioned when we looked at Sparta last week, but the first failure of Xerxes was to try and take down the hot gates of Thermopylae. Here we are. That's where the 300 Spartans stood and died to the last man, including King Leonidas, to try and stop the million-strong army of Xerxes the Great from smashing into Greece. So they hold up Xerxes for a little while. They keep him busy for a few days, whilst the people of Athens can send their women and children out of the city to safety. So the Greeks are, they're attacked by the biggest empire in history. If we go back to a map and we just have a look at, what the Greeks are up against here, the Spartans in particular and the Athenians. Where's our map of the empire? Let's go all the way back. Here we go. We saw right at the start how this would be, no, do as you're told. There we go. This would be the map under Xerxes. This is what the Persian Empire would look like in the red here. This is Sparta. This is Athens. And what Xerxes does is he takes over most of Greece piece by piece, not by attacking it, but by offering the Greek leaders of the cities to become satraps to Persia. And a lot of them do. They decide, yes, we would like to be part of Persia, because Persia's a massive empire with all this wealth and millions of people in it. And, well, Greece is kind of small. We'd rather be on the winning side, thank you very much. But some cities like Athens and Sparta, they say, no, we will stand up against you. So Xerxes throws his army in. He is waylaid at Thermopylae. They hold him up. The 300 Spartans, they stand there and they fight to the death to hold him back, which they do for a little while. Zoom back in here. And that gives the Athenians time to get their ships together. And the next big battle is the Battle of Salamis. Now, this battle is a battle that is fought at sea between the Persian ships and the Greek ships, mainly Athenian ships, but also Spartan ships, and other Greek cities send their ships in as well. And this is where the Athenians win, or the Greeks win. They defeat the Persian fleet, partly because one of the queens of Greece, who is fighting for King Xerxes, she decides to turn tail in the battle and change sides to the Greeks. So she's there with her Persian ships fighting against the Greek ships, and all of a sudden she turns around and just starts smashing into Persian ships and defeats them. And so she saves the day for the Greeks, or at least partly saves the great day for the Greeks. Oh yes, at this time there would have been female rulers. Yes, women in ancient Persia and ancient Greece, depending on where you were in the empire, would have been treated either better or worse. But yeah, there were female satraps for sure. Women often came to own cities or parts. So King Xerxes would have dealt with a lot of women in his day-to-day job. Talking to the queen of this city or the queen of that city over there, and yeah. Cyprus, as far as I know, was not named after Cyrus the Great, although they are pretty similar, aren't they? I mean, possibly, maybe there's a link there, but I don't think so. Not as far as I know. I imagine Cyprus is more of a Greek word than a Persian word. Yeah, I assume anyway. Oh, okay. So Salamis sees the end of the Persian threat. The smaller Greeks, they managed to fight off the Persians. Now, to be fair to Xerxes, I think if he'd actually wanted to take Greece properly, he could have just sent in 5 million soldiers or whatever. He has such a big empire. If he really, really wanted to take down Greece, I think he could have done. But I think the Persians, they kind of, take it or leave it. Xerxes was happy to send armies down there and try and take it, but once he realized it was actually going to be a bit of effort, I think Xerxes decided it probably wasn't worth the bother. Just let the Greeks stay Greek, whatever. Oh, there's a good question, Rukia. What language would they talk? And the answer is loads of languages, absolutely loads. Because it's such a big empire, you would have had, most of Turkey at this point spoke Greek, so they would have been able to understand the people in Greece, but they would have been part of the Persian Empire. The Egyptians would have been talking their Egyptian languages. I suppose in Persia itself, I mean, they're writing cuneiform, so I don't know if they're speaking Akkadian or whether it's Persian yet, but you would have heard, hundreds of languages spoken across the empire, which is why Cyrus had to make his cylinder. He had to make his laws. People can speak how they want, dress how they want, believe in whatever gods that they want. Just, bring me the earth, bring me the water, guys. Yeah, bring me the earth and water. So yeah, Xerxes, a good question here, Tamara. The people are still bringing earth and water. When Xerxes goes to Athens, he sends his messengers to Athens and Sparta. He says, right, the messengers don't say, will you please become a part of the Persian Empire? They say, will you give us earth and water? And the Greeks instantly know what that means, because everyone knows what that means by this point. If you give earth and water, you have agreed to become the satrap and to join the Persian Empire. But the Spartans say no. Famously, the messenger comes, he says, can we please have earth and water? And the Spartans have him killed. They're just like, no, we're not giving you earth, we're not giving you water, and we're going to take off your head. So that was a very firm, strong no from the Spartans there. But many Greek cities, they went, yeah, okay, have the earth, have the water, we'll start paying our taxes, and yeah, quite nice here in the Persian Empire. It wasn't all bad. So there you go. All right, so those, in a nutshell, are our Persian rulers of ancient Persia. A wonderful, I mean, I do urge you, if any of these civilizations you're interested in, if you want to go and look a bit deeper, the Persian Empire is a beautiful empire, wonderful. So do have a look in your own time, maybe. Give me some facts and let you find out. I'd be interested to see what you get. All right, thank you very much, guys. I will see you all on Friday. No lesson tomorrow. On Friday, we're going to have a look at the Tales of Zarathustra, the person who creates Zoroastrianism. So we're sticking with the Persians for another day. Thank you very much, guys, and I'll see you very soon.